Talkback with Anjan Ganesh on Talk 100.3.
Every single Sunday, we have something called Sustainable Sundays. It's a feature segment that happens on Talk 100.3, where we talk to different people who are doing multiple things to help the environment. Now, all of these are tied up with the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. So we've spoken to makers who make eco-friendly products. We've spoken to people from the power industry, in solar, in hydroponics, in vertical farming, people who are making sustainable, usable products like bamboo straws, coconut plantain holders, etc., etc., etc. But today we have a very special guest. His company includes natural water distillation. They have patented technologies that endorse sustainable solutions for water production, irrigation, and transportation. They've also got many other innovative sustainable projects. He's from Manhat, UAE. He's the founder, Dr Saeed Alhassan. Thank you so much for joining us on Sustainable Sundays.
All right. Thank you so much, Ganesh. And this is amazing to be part of Talk 100.3. And thank you for the invitation.
Anytime. So let's just start with Manhat, UAE, and tell us about all the sustainable activities that Manhat, UAE is involved in.
Yeah, we founded Manhat almost a year and a half ago. And the idea was to capitalize on the patents that we developed in our garages, really. That is the starting point of our endeavor here. We thought about finding ways to allow us to produce water in the most sustainable fashion. And we looked at the current desalination technologies. Usually you take a lot of seawater, you actually make 1/3 of it more sweet, and the 2/3 you make them more salty.
And this is a standard process, say in Diva or in Siva?
This is the standard process called the reverse osmosis.
Okay.
And we also noticed that if the audience is familiar with the movie Life of Pi, he survived on the sea by basically using a tool called solar distillation.
That's right.
It's basically a small container. It's inflatable. You basically pump it with air. And he put sea water inside it, and then water evaporates and it condenses, and he was able to survive in the movie.
Correct.
So we inspired by that, but we actually said, you know what? It is time consuming to use these closed containers because you have to put the water inside and then you have to remove the salt after you finish. So we said, instead of doing it this way, why don't we just cover an open water surface like the ocean with the same kind of concept. You put a transparent, let's say, dome or a container or a bottle, let's say, for the sake of argument. You put it on top of an open water surface, water will always evaporate.
True.
The sun radiates and give you energy. The water in open surfaces will evaporate, and then eventually it have to condense. So the condensation happens inside these containers, and these containers are connected to our pipes and hoses, and we collect fresh water. The beautiful thing about this is that we don't have to deal with any salt. There is no brine being produced. If you ask nature, it's already given us the blueprint of how to do this. You evaporate water naturally from open surfaces. You condense the water in the form of rain or snow or ice and so on. So instead of relying on human-made technologies that will only focus on making water quicker and energy efficient because you are paying for the energy, he said, you know what, nature gave us a blueprint. Why don't we use it to produce the water without any side effects? You don't produce brine, you don't produce CO2 because
no carbon emissions.
Yeah, no carbon emission.
And no wastage of any other energy to produce energy from water.
Yeah, and there's no wastage. Yes, the energy of the sun will always go and evaporate the water, and then you condense it in the process.
This is amazing. It's our total pleasure that you joined us in the studios for Talk 100.3 Sustainable Sundays feature. Thank you so much for that.
No problem.
And we also know, like, you're the first recipient of the inaugural Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Award for Scientific Excellence. This was way back in 2017.
True, that's correct.
And I know you're the kinds, you're humble, you don't like to talk about past glory, but after this, I'd like to chat about that a little bit.
All right, sure.
Now, he's blushing. That's so sweet. What kind of questions can our listeners ask you?
Well, I mean, they can ask me about the technology itself at Manhat. They can also ask me about the things I do as a researcher, being a faculty at Khalifa University. So I'm open to both options.
That's right. And you're also the Associate Professor and Senior Director at the Petroleum Institute.
Yeah, that's correct.
So many roles, and we're going to discuss all that after an update from the IPL on what's happening in the match right now. Also, BBC's got a sport update. Muriel's going to tell you about On Talk 100.3, my name is Anjan. You've just joined us for the Sustainable Sunday special feature, which happens every single Sunday. And today we have a special guest, Dr. Saeed Alhassan. Thank you so much for joining us in the studios.
Thank you again.
Now, just to remind you, Dr. Saeed is the founder of Manhat UAE. They've involved in many sustainable projects, including irrigation, water production, transportation. He's also the associate professor and senior director at the Petroleum Institute. And he's a PhD in chemical engineering, and he studied in the United States. He was also the first recipient of the inaugural Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Award for Scientific Excellence in 2017. Tell us about that.
Well, so the that honor came after a long time of basically evaluating candidates who can be qualified for this award. Luckily for me, before that, I have been working on research areas of interest to the UAE. So mainly water, and the other thing is sulfur. I'm wearing a yellow ghutra today. Sulfur is an element, a chemical element, and UAE is the largest producer of that element.
I notice even your face mask is yellow in
yes,
color.
Yes, everything is yellow, even my phone. So we in UAE have launched the Ittihad Railways mainly to transport this element from the fields, oil fields in the desert, all the way to waste port to transport it to the world around the globe.
That's right.
For my work in these two areas, I managed to secure this honor by winning the Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Medal of Scientific Excellence in 2017.
Amazing. You also published to so many journals, like 87 journals, 5 patents, 6 more patent applications, and 11 lectures, and more than 64 conference papers. Tell us about these journals, these articles, and these patents.
Sure. So as a faculty at any university, you do research and you do teaching. So my research work, the outcome of this research is naturally results that I have to communicate to the public through articles which we publish in journals.
Correct.
And also through conferences, and sometimes through patents, because patents is a vehicle to allow us to reap the benefit of this research, where
Correct.
we can capitalize on them and create economical value out of this research that we do.
Amazing. And so all of these patents are around the sulfur and around water?
Well, I have water. I have patents on water, and I have patents on sulfur. I have also patents on other areas, including artificial soil, which we submitted last year, and we also publicized it in different newspapers around the UAE. So our work is a bit diverse, but the key components is my expertise in chemical engineering and the team that I collaborate with, the people I hire, who are also top-notch people who can help us in understanding what's going on with each specific field of research.
I'd love to hear more about the artificial soil, considering it's Sustainable Sundays.
Yes, so here the idea is the following. So from my work on sulfur, we know that sulfur is used in fertilizers, and by looking at UAE, we have a really poor soil that is not suitable for a lot of agricultural applications. We also know that we have a huge bauxite residue. This bauxite is...
And this is in Abu Dhabi, Alain?
Yeah, this is the work we do.
No, where is the bauxite reserve?
The bauxite is being processed by the aluminum companies.
Okay,
the
so
MS
it's
Global
a
Aluminum.
byproduct.
It's a byproduct of both factories in Dubai and Abu Dhabi, and they have a huge quantity of that. So the idea was we mix about 80% of sand from the desert with a little bit of sulfur,
plenty,
which is a huge amount, a little bit of sulfur, a little bit of bauxite, and then a little bit of other ingredients, including natural clay and so on. And we came up with this artificial soil, which is customizable. You can make it to grow a specific crop as per your requirements, and we are still developing this in the university.
This is fantastic news. So in the future, we could have perhaps a sustainable city made out of this artificial soil.
It's possible. I mean, the sky is the limit. So now we are actually in the phase of figuring out what will be the best way to deploy this in the market, because it is market ready. The technique is not complicated. It doesn't require anything significant.
So it'll be a B2C product where anybody can buy this and plant it in their indoor gardens, outdoor gardens.
Yes. So B2C is one of the best options. Obviously, you can also do it B2B. Depends on some companies who are now active in the agricultural fields.
Amazing. So let's talk a bit about irrigation, because I know Manhat UAE is involved a lot in irrigation and how it's one of the biggest sustainable projects in the UAE.
Yeah. So the patents we developed, actually, we made them in a way that will allow us to immediately use the water we produce in irrigation. So we are deploying these. The theory is to deploy these products along coastlines, and coastline right now, the Corniche and so on, they basically use water produced 100 kilometers away. Why not we use the water next door, which is the sea, and use it immediately in an irrigation process to allow us to sustain these green fields across the Corniches without the need for, importing the water from 100 kilometers away in the desalination plants. So that was the idea behind it. And also we can deploy our techniques and technologies in farms. Actually, I'm testing my prototypes in the farm that we have at home in desalinating or distilling water to allow us to use it for irrigation.
That's amazing. And this water comes from the ocean?
In the farm is actually from groundwater, but
Okay.
it's salty groundwater.
Okay.
So we
Okay.
can basically pump it to the surface, and then we use our technique to make it sweeter, and then we can use it for irrigation.
Now, a few weeks ago, we had the CEO of Drake Technologies, and he came in
Yes.
and he was talking about rainwater harvesting.
Yes.
Does your company do this also? And if yes, are you using that for irrigation?
Yeah, so rainwater harvesting is something that humanity has been doing for a very long time. In an urban area, you need to do it so that the city will be ready to actually absorb all that water. But in open areas, in fields and in agricultural areas, the soil itself will basically the keeper of the water.
That's right.
So for urban locations, yes, you need a design to allow you to benefit from this excess water. But in open areas, you probably don't need that. So
This
it
is
depends
amazing.
on the application.
We're going to continue talking about agriculture, about irrigation and transportation, and a few other innovations in the sustainable field that you yourself and your company is doing. That's coming up after the 1 minute from BBC and also the IPL sports update. My name is Anjan. This is Sustainable Sundays special feature which happens every single Sunday. Our special guest, Dr Saeed Alhassan. If you have any questions for him regarding sustainability, water production, irrigation, sulfur, anything to do, he's like one of the senior directors at the Petroleum Institute, so he's got lots of knowledge. You can ask him